Hello and thank you for tuning in to Millennium Movies. So man, what a terrific and darkly fun episode of Servant. Just when I was about to call out the incompetence of the cult members for consistently failing to capture Leanne, with this episode seeing 3 people, 2 of which we saw in last week's episode as sort of the new neighbors that Sean and Dorothy have, but they threw that party where they were trying to, basically guise a party to sort of set up people, whoever might be from the cult, to come and capture Leanne. Well, we saw 2 of those people, along with another third person, in this episode try and capture Leanne. And what was kind of a funny sequence for me, at least, when you're just seeing the way Leanne was just sort of bopping them over the head with that really hard object. And I don't know, it just kind of played out as a really funny scene for me. But then no, because we get the most M. Night Shyamalan twist of M. Night Shyamalan twist. And I know he's not writing the scripts, as some of you have pointed out, but he's still the showrunner. So he's still, his influence is all over the series. And the twist that I'm talking about is that it was actually one of the live-in nurses that we got, and earlier in the season. It was one of them too, and it wasn't even both of them. It was just one of them. Very interesting choice there, and something that I didn't see coming up until the moment where she took Leanne down into the basement, where I was like, are we gonna do this? Yeah, they're gonna do this, and sure enough, they did. And man, what a terrific sequence that was. I mean, her whipping herself over her back, and just like we know that the cult members do, and then Leanne sort of just making her sort of like puff up or blow up from the inside, basically rupture from the inside. Man, that was a really unique and sort of a grotesque way to go for that character. It's something that I certainly didn't see coming. I'd be curious to know if you guys did, but I think that sequence and this episode really accomplished a lot. And what it most did was Julian got to see firsthand just how dangerous Leanne is. He got to see what Leanne did to that nurse, even though he knows that, the nurse was from the cult and she was trying to capture Leanne and take her away from them. Leanne had no problem killing that woman in cold blood, as she has had no problem, breaking people's arms and hurting people, physically and even emotionally, with the way that she was treating people all throughout this episode and bossing them around. But mostly, I think it's the maniacal laughter that we get from Leanne, where she's like really taking a liking and she's really enjoying and savoring this power that she has, and knowing that no matter what the cult throws at her, she just keeps coming out on top, and she's enjoying that. She is actively enjoying that power that she is inflicting upon others. So I think that the most crucial part of that sequence is the fact that Julian got to witness that, and really throughout this episode, and as well as last week's as well, Sean in particular has been the one to realize, just like I've sort of been saying for the previous weeks on this channel, that if they can get Julian back on their side, that they actually stand a chance of getting Leanne out of the house, because it's going to be up to the Turners themselves. The cult is just, again, like I said, aside from the nurse getting the one-up on Leanne for a hot minute, the cult is really incompetent, and they can't do anything to capture her because Leanne sees it coming from a mile away. And while she may suspect that the Turners are not all the way on her side, I don't think that she's expecting Julian to actually go all the way and turn on her, because she feels like she has him wrapped around her little finger. And to an extent, she really has, up until this point where in this episode where we really get to see Sean sort of break Julian down. And even though it took a lot of insulting and them actually getting to a physical altercation with each other, which was also a very funny sequence where we got to see Sean and Julian both slap each other. That was really hilarious. But the overall basic point that I'm trying to get at here is that Sean realizes that him and Dorothy need Julian if they're going to get rid of Leanne for good. And we saw by the end of this episode that Julian is fully accepting now, for once in his life, that okay, yeah, I'm a mess, and I'm not just going to acknowledge I'm a mess. I'm actually going to try and do something about it and be there for my sister and do something that's not for me for once. And I really appreciate that for these characters, and I appreciate how these characters finally got to this point. It took almost the entire series, but I think it should have, because these 2 characters, and Sean and Julian especially, should not have been characters that just switch sides so easily. And I'm glad that it took them this long, because now the payoff is hopefully going to be that much sweeter. Although I will say, though, just with the ending shot of this episode, at least involving Julian, I really am starting to worry now that this could in order to fully get rid of Leanne, it is going to take a sacrifice from Julian, potentially costing him his life, to secure the victory against Leanne. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But finally, the last thing that I really want to touch up on here in this episode was the fact that Dorothy is after she has a conversation with the other nurse who says that she's not a part of the cult, but she tells her, she's basically explaining to her what she thinks is going on with Leanne, and the fact that Leanne is exhibiting these symptoms of these children who develop these sort of religious or faith-based obsessions with people that they look up to, and that's sort of formed in their childhood early on, and they latch onto something and they'll never let it go. She basically says that Leanne would rather die than let go of Dorothy and what she has in this newfound family with the Turners. And then we get this shot where Dorothy is going through her old anchor news coverage tapes, and she sees something that we had revealed to us a long while back in the series. But finally Dorothy is barely realizing this herself now, that she actually had already interacted with Leanne years and years ago when Leanne was just a little girl, and we saw that right there in that moment, just like we've seen with so many other people throughout the rest of the series, when it comes to either Dorothy and her job, working as a journalist and as a news anchor, or not a news anchor, but you know what I'm trying to say, a reporter. She has people who look up to her in the city, and as well with Sean, right? Sean is a chef who's on TV, and people know him, and he's popular, and people know who the Turners are, and like the news anchor in the beginning of this episode said, that the neighborhood that they live in is a very affluent neighborhood where people know these people. These are people of notoriety around the city of Philadelphia that the Turners live in. So it makes sense that Leanne saw someone like Dorothy way back when she was a kid, and she looked up to her. And when the horrible tragic accident happened with Jericho, Leanne was already probably keeping tabs on Dorothy, and when that incident happened, that's when Leanne swooped into Dorothy's life to sort of play the hero. But what she's really doing is not just, she's not coming into this being just playing the hero. She's manipulating Dorothy, and she's manipulating Sean and Julian, and she has been doing that for some time now. For those of you who have been on the fence saying that you don't like Dorothy or you don't like the Turners and you're on Leanne's side, this is really the smoking gun to say that no, Leanne is not a good person. Yes, she had a very rough and very unfair childhood, but it doesn't excuse her behavior and the fact that she is the villain of this story. And that last sequence with Dorothy finding that tape and seeing the truth of what Leanne has been doing all for a very long time, that is that's setting in stone that Leanne is our antagonist. She is the villain of this series. And I'm going to be very curious to see, in these last couple of episodes, how now that Julian is back on the Turner side with, Dorothy and Sean, they're all together. I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle this final confrontation between Leanne and the Turners. But yeah, another solid episode of Servant. Really, really, really excited to see the finale of this series. And as well, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as well on this episode and where you think this series is going to end. But yeah, until next time, guys, this has been Millennium Movies, and I will see you all very soon.